Your Excellency Andrej Babiš, Prime Minister of the Czech Republic, Your Excellency Miroslav Lajčák, President of the UN General Assembly, Your Excellency Martin Stropnický, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Czech Republic, Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations Amina Mohamed, Minister of Planning of Colombia Luis Fernando Mejia, Under-Secretaries General, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. As the President of the United Nations Economic and Social Council, it is my honor to open this conference on our presidency priority topic towards sustainable, resilient and inclusive societies through participation of all. This event comes in preparation of the special meeting in New York on the 23rd of May. As a start, let me thank the President of the General Assembly and Deputy Secretary General for accepting this invitation. I take it as a strong proof of your trust to our ECOSOC presidency. And thanks to you, this preparatory meeting became a high-level preparatory meeting. I commend your leadership and appreciate our wonderful cooperation in New York. Much obliged thanks also goes to the Minister of Planning of Colombia, our partner country for our presidency priority. Lastly, I would like to recognize the presence of two Under-Secretary Generals, other esteemed guests, panelists, organizers, and all of you. Without all of you, we could not have made it. As the ambassador of the Czech Republic to the United Nations, I have the pleasure of welcoming you to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Prague, my hometown. A well-deserved acknowledgement goes to our Prime Minister and to our Minister of Foreign Affairs, since it is also with their contribution that we can call this meeting a high-level one. I thank you for your outstanding support. As you all know, the 2030 Agenda was adopted unanimously by 193 UN member states in September 2015. I think it is important to realize the magnitude of this, that so many leaders were able to agree unanimously on such an ambitious plan. Of course, the true test is and will be the implementation. We are at the beginning, we are on a good track, but we must not lose the momentum. Many things still remain to be done. Although the greatest responsibility lies on each country, UN contribution provides assistance and gives a platform for countries to share their progress. And here the role of the ECOSOC becomes crucial. ECOSOC is this central platform for countries to share their achievement in alignment their national policies with the 2030 Agenda. It coordinates numerous agencies, programs, funds, and committees. It offers opportunities to learn, innovate, and mobilize support from different stakeholders through various forums we've been organizing. For example, Youth and Partnership Forum, Forum on Financing, Development, High-Level Political Forum, Voluntary National Reviews, and many others. All of them with the same aim, involving a maximum of stakeholders. This matches completely our presidency priority, participation of all. Traveling through the transition path ourselves, we can testify that long-term prosperity and security is not possible without offering opportunities of involvement to everyone. The Czech Republic has the ECOSOC presidency after 20 years. This time it is during significant reforms held at the UN. At a meeting of ECOSOC in January, the UN Secretary General highlighted that sustainable development is a fundamental human right and humanity's best chance for a future of peace and prosperity. Today and tomorrow's discussion is a part of this effort. We will discuss the critical role of participation, good governance, and strong and inclusive institutions with positive practices and case studies from all around the world. I strongly believe that our small steps can be big strides towards success, building on a culture of participation. To conclude, let me quote Winston Churchill. "The pessimist sees difficulty in every opportunity, and the optimist sees opportunity in every difficulty." So let's be optimists, and I would add, let's be active optimists. With that, it is my great pleasure and honor to give the floor to His Excellency Andrej Babiš, Prime Minister of the Czech Republic. Mr. Prime Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you. Dear President of United Nations Economic and Social Council, Žatardová, dear President of United Nations General Assembly, Lajčák, dear Minister Mejia, dear Deputy Secretary General Mohamed, dear Minister Stropnický, Excellencies, distinguished guests. It's an honor and pleasure to welcome you all in Prague for this meeting of the United Nations Economic and Social Council. It is the first time that ECOSOC meets in the Czech Republic. It is very symbolic that we are meeting here just this year. As you may know, 2018 is a year of special importance for our country. We are celebrating 100 years since the foundation of the independent Czechoslovak state. The principles of democracy, freedom, peace, and justice on which Czechoslovakia was founded are as needed today as they were in 1918. Young Czechoslovakia understood the importance of the multilateralism and diplomacy for the peace world. Jan Papánek, who worked for Czechoslovak Foreign Ministry in this very building, was among the 14 people who wrote the United Nations Charter. Mr. Papánek was also our first ambassador to the United Nations in 1945 and the vice president of the first Bureau of ECOSOC in 1947. Multilateralism, as embodied in the United Nations and its charter, has been a firm foundation of shared progress and development over more than 70 years. Most likely, it saved us from another world war. Yet, the world today is shaped by major trends such as globalization, migration, democratic shifts, terrorism, climate change, and digitalization. Too many people still suffer from armed conflict, political oppression, inequalities, and violation of their human rights. So there is no denying that we must do much more to meet new challenges across all areas in UN works: peace and security, sustainable development, and human rights. Finding the right answers at the time of profound change and global insecurity is not easy, but giving up is not an option. On the global level, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development offers a sound roadmap to a peaceful future without poverty, hunger and environmental degradation, where everybody benefits from economic and social progress. But finding solutions to global challenges also requires a rule of law and strong, transparent and accountable institutions. In my view, one of the biggest obstacles to more effective institutions, both globally and locally, is the lack of trust. Without trust, there are no credible visions. But how can we rebuild trust? Let me offer an example of our experience. Before the totalitarian regime collapsed in 1989, the distrust within the Czech and Slovak society was enormous. After the Velvet Revolution, the newborn political elites has a crucial task ahead to rebuild confidence between them and the citizens they represented. Participation in public affairs and civic discussion proved among the most effective tools to achieve this goal. After many years, people were given the chance to express their views on a number of issues and to actively change their neighborhoods and their communities. This participation led to many positive results in our society, and the focus on civil society was transmitted to the development projects we allocate our resources to within our official development assistance. By the way, it reached over $260 million in 2016. Success stories can be found across all sectors and across all continents. They often bring together a number of players from different levels. A project proposal to build a social housing in southern Colombia by the Czech Ministry of Foreign Affairs in cooperation with the local authorities in Colombia and Mexican construction company, financed by the European Union Trust Fund for Colombia, is an excellent example. Naturally, it is not easy, but the participatory process is invaluable in itself. Participation enhances the sense of ownership of the decision-making process and its outcomes. It provides a necessary feedback. It teaches that trust pays off. In other words, participation is beneficial both for the quality of policies and for society as a whole. And participation is essential also to delivering the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. That is why priority of the Czech ECOSOC presidency, supported by Colombia, is towards sustainable, resilient and inclusive societies through participation of all. Let me wish you 2 days of inspiring debate here in Prague. Thank you.
I thank our Prime Minister for his insightful statement, and now I give the floor to the Minister of Planning of Colombia, Luis Fernando Mejia. Mr. Minister, the floor is yours.
His Excellency Andrej Babiš, Prime Minister of the Czech Republic, special salute and recognition for your country's outstanding leadership in the promotion and implementation of the 2030 Agenda. Her Excellency Amina Mohamed, Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, we all admire you for your very resolute compromise with the SDGs since their initial formulation stages. I especially wish to thank you for your support to the Colombian process. We had the honor to have Amina in Colombia in 2015 when we launched our National SDG Commission. His Excellency Miroslav Lajčák, President of the UN General Assembly, a very close friend to our government, thank you very much for your important support by accompanying us in Bogota just 10 days ago during the launch of the Colombian SDGs White Paper, which I will refer to later. His Excellency Martin Stropnicki, Minister of Foreign Affairs, my most sincere and special regards to you for hosting us today, and to the team of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs who have supported us in all regards and have made this visit possible. Thank you very much. Her Excellency Maria Chatardova, Ambassador and President of the ECOSOC, special thanks for the organization of this event, for having personally flown to Bogota to extend this invitation, and particularly for your outstanding results on leadership as President of the ECOSOC. His Excellency Jaime Alberto Cabal, Colombian Ambassador to Czech Republic and Austria. And last but not least, my dear wife Margaret, thank you very much for being here. It has been a true honor for Colombia to work hand in hand with the Czech Republic, and we can only but celebrate this friendly and strategic partnership that has brought so much value to both other countries. Colombia is the 31st largest economy in the world, with a population of 50 million people. It distinguishes itself by a long-standing tradition of economic stability, evidenced by the fact that, for example, Colombians have seen just 3 years of negative growth in more than a century. The government has never defaulted on its debt in modern economic history, and the economy has not experienced a single episode of hyperinflation, a common malaise in Latin American economies. Unfortunately, investment, employment, and economic growth were held back by the war against the FARC, the longest-standing conflict in the Western Hemisphere. With this in mind, under the leadership of President and later Nobel Prize winner Juan Manuel Santos, the government embarked in peace talks with this guerrilla movement, the FARC, on 2012, a 5-year process which successfully culminated in June 2017, when the FARC ceased to be an armed group, handing over its weapons to the United Nations. As a result, the FARC are now a political party running for Congress, and just 2 weeks ago, we had the more peaceful elections in more than 50 years. Both our studies and independent research have estimated that peace will bring about additional growth of about 1% per year, with agriculture and tourism standing to benefit the most. With potential output growth at about 3.5 per year, such an increase implies that income will double every 15 years, 5 years faster than it would take without peace. Alongside the great news in the peace front, Colombia has made great economic and social progress during this decade. With an agenda of inclusive and sustainable growth, the poverty rate has fallen from 40% of the population to 26.9% during the past 8 years. And the extreme poverty rate was cut in half, from 14% to 7% of population, lifting 4.8 million people out of poverty and 2.8 million out of extreme poverty during this period. At this rate, Colombia will have eradicated extreme poverty by 2030. On the environmental agenda, even though Colombia contributes less than 0.5% with total greenhouse gas emissions, it has suffered great economic and life losses from climate change-related disasters. For instance, La Niña episode during 2010 was estimated to cost around 2% of GDP, affecting 14% of the primary road network, more than 500,000 houses, leading to more than 1,300 deaths. And climate change will continue to do so. According to our third national communication, by 2040, temperatures could rise by 0.9 degrees Celsius, and precipitation could decrease between 10% and 40% in almost 30% of our territory. Adapting to climate change will decrease the impacts of this phenomena and could avoid average annual losses estimated at about 0.5% of GDP. As a result, Colombia has moved decisively on several fronts. First, President Santos made a pledge in COP21 in Paris of reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 20% by 2030, involving specific compromises by all sectors of the economy. Second, we have created or strengthened the necessary public entities for adapting to and mitigating climate change, including a National Adaptation Agency and a National Climate Change Committee. Third, a recent tax reform introduced a carbon tax and a plastic bags tax, which are collecting $200 million per year, with their proceeds being directed towards reforestation and restoration of water bodies. All these efforts are being pursued under the umbrella of an all-encompassing agenda, the Sustainable Development Goals. Back in Rio 2012, Colombian government officials participated decisively in the idea of a more ambitious agenda with economic, social, and environmental objectives, with the inclusion of both developing and developed economies. To continue with this leadership in the 2030 Agenda, Colombia was the first country in the world to include the SDGs in its National Development Plan back in 2015. Our last effort in this direction was the recent approval by the President and all cabinet members of an SDG white paper. This policy document, which was publicly consulted, defines 16 main targets, one for each goal, with quantitative measures that allow for prioritizing government and private efforts as well. For instance, in goal number 1, no poverty, we set multidimensional poverty as the main target. This poverty measure goes beyond income measures, focusing instead in access to health, education, housing, formal employment, and child well-being. In this sense, we regard this measure as more structural. Colombia's multidimensional poverty rate stood at 30% of the population in 2010, stands now at 17%, and should lie below 8.4% by 2030, according to the target set in this white paper. The document also defined regional targets with the purpose of leaving no one behind, thereby closing regional gaps and empowering local authorities with specific responsibilities in this global agenda. This is an important way for motivating participation at the territorial level. We have also launched a public platform so that every citizen can learn about each target and monitor its progress. In this platform, we intend to push forward a portfolio of projects to leverage private and international involvement and investment. Without sound financing from multiple sources, no country will be able to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals and targets. Finally, I would like to conclude with how participation has been key in building trust between the government and local communities, especially those at municipalities that were highly affected by the armed conflict. With the objective of closing socioeconomic gaps, we are building with local communities what we have called territorial-focused development plans. Bringing together the peace, SDG, and climate change agenda, projects are being identified and prioritized at the local level, then aggregated at the regional level, and presented nationally as a portfolio for projects for public and private investment. This, combined with innovative measures like tax breaks for new companies that are creating these mainly rural communities, and tax deductions for large companies that want to invest in projects from that portfolio, are creating the right conditions for the advancement of inclusive growth and the Sustainable Development Agenda. Colombia has put in place 4 pillars for achieving this agenda: political willingness, policy priorities, financing vehicles, and participation. Although challenges still lie ahead, we believe Colombia, alongside other countries like the Czech Republic, have started to build a more prosperous and sustainable society on the solid foundation of these 4 pillars. We certainly hope all countries within their national priorities will embark in this critical world agenda. The time to act for current and future generations has come. We must do so without hesitation. Thank you very much.
I thank Minister Mejia for his inspiring statement. Now I give the floor to His Excellency Martin Stropnický, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Czech Republic.
We are always strong in improvisation in the Czech Republic. So another example. There are so many distinguished guests here this morning, and they have been all named, welcomed, and quoted, that allow me just to say, dear guests, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to Prague. And let me start by a rhetoric question. Would the world be any different without the 2030 agenda? Well, probably not, but it would be very different without the values and principles that underpin the 2030 agenda, without the will and determination of nations united to transform our world and our lives. As humans, we feed on ideals. We struggle to make this world a better place. Improving the quality of our lives is our essential motivation. Improving our surroundings, our countries, our planet are also the goals of the 2030 agenda. It is for a good reason that this agenda focuses on 5 Ps: people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. Political parties and governments tend to forget sometimes that it is not power that societies are built on. It is ideas that became cornerstones of societies, even civilizations. Prime Minister Babiš recalled here today the centenary of Czechoslovakia, a state which was born from the turmoil of a world war and which was founded on values such as humanity, democracy, peace, rule of law, ethics. And as we remember this anniversary today, we are once again reminded that these ideals are timeless. It is therefore no wonder that they are also at the core of the 2030 agenda and its 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Goals which are becoming the foundation of our future. Achieving change in our interconnected world has become a cross-cutting issue. We live in times when even a minor event can have global impact. This is also the reason why no one can be left behind. Not only would it be wrong, it would set all of us back. The broad scope of the 2030 agenda allows everyone to achieve progress and succeed. Working jointly is not merely an option, it is an absolute must. The 2030 agenda offers a roadmap for the transformation of our world. There are no easy tasks ahead. Changes are happening at an unprecedented pace. We are facing some of the greatest challenges that humankind has ever had to face. But we also have the means and knowledge that humankind has never had before to cope with these challenges. The 2030 agenda offers a roadmap for progress and instructions how to avoid future crises. The 2030 agenda is very ambitious, no doubt. It gives us more than 17 goals in 169 targets. It gives us an opportunity to reflect on the sustainability of our lives, our ideas, our institutions. It offers us a chance to decide what kind of future we wish for. The 2030 agenda stipulates that every country is responsible for its own development. However, no country can succeed on its own. To have a future, we need to work together, find new ways and solutions, seek cross-cutting approaches and visions beyond our horizon. It is not possible to achieve global and ambitious goals without the participation of all, without consensus and involvement of all segments of our societies. The Czech Republic set on a journey from a totalitarian regime to democracy just 29 years ago. This has never been done before. In a relatively short period of time, freedom was restored, the economy became market-driven, the rule of law was reinstated, civil society was revived, and the environment improved significantly. Last year, the economy grew by 4.5%, while unemployment is the lowest in Europe. With prosperity came the acceptance of our share of global and social responsibility. Learning our lessons and sharing our experience with the transformation of society is one of our contributions to the struggle for a better world. Our transitions program and our development cooperation program are other examples. Ladies and gentlemen, a quote attributed to Charlie Chaplin says, "I look to the future because that's where I'm going to spend the rest of my life." So also for my own sake, I hope that we are on the right track. I hope that while working on the sustainable development goals, we will inspire and lead each other, because there are only 12 years left until 2030. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Minister, for your outstanding statement. Ladies and gentlemen, the opening is now over. We will move into the interactive dialogue immediately after the change of the podium. Please remain seated. I thank you.